Okay, you survived the first half of module number 1. Congratulations! You did an excellent job, and now we're moving on to the second half. And the second half is going to focus on this thing that we call facilities. Now, if you've watched those lecture videos in the first half, you are probably thinking to yourself, well, Tracy probably needs to be placed into a facility, but not today. All right, so what now we need to focus on is the facility, or up underneath the roof of the companies that we are getting ready to talk about and that we're getting ready to learn more about. So up underneath the facility, you've probably have heard this before. It takes a village. Ooh, okay, well, it does take a village. Absolutely, it does take a village. The baker and the candlestick maker, the butcher, yay. Okay, well, we don't necessarily have those roles up underneath the facilities of biomanufacturing, but we do have specific job roles and tasks that are assigned to different people as they are hired in. So, for instance, they believe that they can control this type of situation a little bit better if they bring in one person, and that one person has that one job that they need to do extremely well over and over and over every single day. So the way that this facility is organized, that's really what we're getting ready to talk about here. We are getting ready to focus on all of the inner gears that turn within a biopharmaceutical and pharmaceutical industry. Now, I talk about these separately, pharma and biopharma, because they are somewhat different, and we'll talk about that and we'll learn more about that throughout the entire time that we're together. All right, so first off, I want to give you a map. Where's the village at? Okay, well, there are different areas within the state of North Carolina, and depending on what year that you watch this, of course, this map can explode with more dots, because it seems like every time we turn around, we are reading about another multi-million-dollar investment that's going on within the state of North Carolina. It's all pharma and biopharma driven, or at least related in some form or fashion. Some of these companies are huge, and some of these companies are a little bit smaller footprint, but still they're pharma and biopharma. What you're going to find is that as a graduate of BioWork, as a certificate holder of BioWork, or if you are involved in our chemical technology program and you're learning more about the laboratory testing side of the house, or if you are involved in our bioprocess manufacturing degree, which is learning a little bit deeper into the manufacturing world and what goes on with additional training, then you're going to find employers, many employers in the middle part of the state, and we will often call this the research triangle, or RTP. So RTP is going to be housing hundreds of employers for you potentially, and these jobs pay extremely well, whether you're on the lab side or whether you're on the manufacturing side. So if you don't want to stay in Wilmington and you want to stay within the state of North Carolina, great. Absolutely. That's the purpose of this class. So that is going to be kind of your number one target area as far as employability. Now in Wilmington, you are looking Pender, Wilmington, New Hanover, Pender, Brunswick County. You are going to find a handful of employers here as well. That's local. Two of the biggest ones are going to be Quality Chemical Laboratories and Alchemy, of course, on 23rd Street. But there are going to be more, and there are more than that currently right now. But it just seems like they gravitate to those because those are the pharmaceutical, biopharmaceutical related types of companies that this course really focuses on. But, this gives you an idea of what's here, what's across the state, where are going to be some target areas. Most of the time, if you grew up in Wilmington, you might not want to stay in Wilmington. You want to branch out, you want to leave, you want to see something new. And it does seem that a lot of our graduates, they do tend to migrate to the Research Triangle or RTP area. So Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, those types of areas are going to be filled with these types of employers that you might be interested in working for. Uh, so the question is like, why is there like a big void here in the southwestern region? Well, the voids are going to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one, I will say that these facilities, when they begin to open, they need to be huge, and the problem is that we're running out of land. So what's happening here is that the land that we do have in these counties that surround Cape Fear Community College and where we're located, that land is really taken up. I mean, look at the city of Wilmington. You know, is there any acreage that is there anymore that is available and free? No, it's almost taken up by a lot of residential areas, a lot of subdivisions, and instead of maybe I hate to use the word leveling out the land for a new subdivision, then you know, they really ideally here they should be leveling out the land to bring in more employers, so that way people here will have more jobs and more opportunities, more growth, and bring more industry into the area. So that's the number one thing that these people are fighting. So when these facilities get built, folks, these things are absolutely huge. Absolutely. They will need acreage and acreage and acreage and acreage of land sometimes in order to build these manufacturing facilities. And depending on the size, these things could be what we would call a campus instead of a facility. So what that means is that, yes, that is where you go to work. Yes, that is your job, but the campus, not the job site, is going to be a thing. And that campus means there's things other than work. So you will often see maybe restaurants that cater to that particular type of company. You're seeing in daycare situations where you can bring your kids and your children with you and drop them off at the daycare while you walk down the block and go to work. You're going to see things like on-staff nurses and on-staff doctors sometimes. So these things can be as creative as they want to be, and it really depends on the size of the company and what they're after and how you know, they anticipate their workforce growing, or how many numbers that they need in order to make all the gears and the chains work inside of the facility and the manufacturing line and the laboratory testing line and so forth. So that's kind of all of the gears and mechanisms that go on, and these places, of course, again, can be huge depending on the type of company and what they want to manufacture and what they want to do. All right, so I want to give you an idea of what's like up underneath these roofs, right? That's the second half of this module. What are we going to find that is taking place in here in order to make this work the proper way? So there's going to be a couple of things that I can at least talk about now. Some of them are just going to be very brief mentions, and then some of them we're going to talk a little bit later on down in the course and in the other modules. But I first want to talk about a difference between incoming and then another category that is outgoing. So there's two different classifications here, and there's things that are coming into the facility, and then there's things that are leaving the facility. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So the incoming things, maybe number one, would be something like raw materials. So raw materials are going to be the ingredients that are going to be used to make the drug products with. So for instance, again, I love to use analogies and I love to go into the kitchen. So what this means is that I can drive down to the grocery store and I can get my raw materials. My raw materials would be the egg and the butter and the water, maybe, who knows, but it's all of the ingredients that are needed in order for me to make a recipe at the house, right? So I'm going to get those ingredients in some form, in some fashion. Now, if I'm really lazy about it, I'll just go to Amazon and I'll order it, and I'll let a delivery driver, or I'll let some type of, you know, Whole Foods, Amazon, if I want to be really fancy, to come to my door and drop off the grocery bag. Okay, well, those are raw materials, and they are incoming into the facility, and that facility is my home. All right, well, companies that are out here making drug products are very similar. They will order these materials. Those materials will be shipped. That will be delivered at the facility, and someone is in charge of accepting those raw materials and inventorying it and logging it and so forth. So you're already getting a little bit of sense of what is going to have to be required here for this company to work the proper way. So incoming, number one, raw materials or the ingredients that I need in order to make this recipe work. Number two, the other incoming piece is going to be personnel. And those personnel people are going to be in charge of many different areas of the facility, but we call them incoming because they are showing up to work. So they are driving to the facility, they're getting out of their car, they're walking through the parking lots, and they are going into the facility wherever they have been assigned to. So therefore, by proper definition, they are incoming. They are incoming from the outside. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I phrased it in that way for a reason. Next up, number three, another incoming piece is utilities. So utilities are going to be like your utility bills that you're paying at your house. So that would be a water bill and an electric bill and a phone bill. All of those are utilities. Well, guess what? These facilities have to pay utilities as well. And one of those things, of course, under utilities would be something like water. Water is incoming. Water is getting provided from a supplier or from a community kind of related CFPUA, for example. These are all kind of county or city types of companies that are providing the electric and the water and everything that these companies need. Again, that is coming from an outside source and it's incoming into the facility. So all of these things are kind of getting fed in some form, in some fashion. The outgoing side, well, the first thing that we can talk about, the outgoing side, would be something that we call a finished product. And a finished product is kind of my recipe after I get finished with it. So I'm getting the egg and I'm getting the milk and I'm getting the butter and I'm getting the flour and I'm getting the sugar. Those are all the raw materials. And then I follow the recipe, aka standard operating procedure. And then I'm going to bake my cake and I'm going to take my cake out. Okay, well, that is a finished product. That is what I set kind of in place, in motion very early on in order to make. So I've got this cake now in my hand, and this cake is I'm going to have to do something with it. I'm probably making the cake in order to try to sell it in some form or fashion. Let's say I'm a bakery, in-home baker. Okay, whatever. So at the same time, I'm going to have to make a finished product. That finished product is going to have to leave. So where does it go? Who does it end up going to? How do I package it? I'm not just going to put a cake in an envelope and send it out through the mail. So how does it get transported from where it leaves the facility to where it's going? All of those are very important pieces of the puzzle. So finished products are going to be leaving the facility. And then personnel is also going to be leaving the facility. So once their shift is over, they're going to leave, they're going to go out, they're going to go away. And then maybe the next day they'll come back again all over and repeat the process. But at the same time, they are leaving out of the building. So we're going to put them as an outgoing type of thing. And then number three, we can talk about waste. That is also outgoing. It's leaving the facility. So as I am making my cake, I've got a butter wrapper. I need to throw that away. I've got maybe an empty milk carton. I need to throw that away. I've got broken eggshells. I need to throw those away. So as I'm making these pharmaceutical types of products, we are using these raw materials, and there's going to be waste and there's going to be scrap that we do not need. So we need to dispose of that in some form, in some fashion. So how do we do that? That is kind of always the question that we've got to ask, and we've got to make sure that we pay attention to it, because just like your house, if you do not throw away your waste and dispose of it the proper way, what's going to happen? Then before you know it, you're going to be on an episode of Hoarders. And then that's the noise that I hear every single time. That's the music that they play in the background when I see these rooms piled up with trash and stuff all the way around them. I do not want to be working in that facility, and that is not going to be legal in order to operate in making a pharmaceutical or biopharmaceutical product. All of these facility regulations, guess what, are going to be mandated by 21 CFR 211. So Title 21, Code of Federal Regulations. Yay! I learned more about about that in the last module. So yeah, there's going to be rules, there's going to be regulations, there's going to be things that we're going to have to follow that we need to make sure that the company is abiding by. Otherwise, they violate the regulations that are at place at the federal government. If they violate the regulations, then guess what? You don't have a job, the company can't do a job, and the company goes out of business and you lose a paycheck. So it's very important that, again, these rules and regulations are getting followed, and they do have some regulations that are concerning the facilities that we begin to work in and that they maybe want to build. All right, so let's talk about some of these facilities and go through, oh gosh, look at all the words, all of the bullet points and the notes that we need to kind of take a place. All right, so I'm not going to make you memorize all of this, and I'm only going to highlight the important terms that are going to be important for the lecture module. Number one, facilities shall be of suitable size, construction, and location to facilitate the cleaning, the maintenance, and the proper operations. So I'm just going to say facilities should have a suitable size. Notice how vague that is. Yeah, this is 21 CFR, but look at how vague it is. They do not know what the company's intentions are. Maybe the company is only going to be making one product only, and that is it. So they're going to have a much smaller footprint, a much smaller facility need. But if I'm talking about a biopharmaceutical company that's going to be making large batches of products, and there's going to be multiple products that are going to be made at the same time, then of course those facilities are going to be much larger. Well, the government doesn't know what you want to do as a company, so they're going to make a very vague sentence here that's going to basically state, you do what you deem fit, just make sure it is appropriate. That is what this is all about. Do not cram everything into one room. Do not cram all of your employees in one room just so you can have a smaller footprint and a smaller building. This is not going to be allowed. You need to make sure it is appropriate. You need to make sure that you can get around in the room. You need to make sure that you can get around equipment in the room in case you've got to maintenance it or troubleshoot it or replace it. So this is their way of saying, companies, you make your decision on what you see best, and then explain to us why you think that is okay. And then if we agree with you, then absolutely, cha-ching, you get a check mark, and we go on to the next one. Next up, it says facilities should have adequate space for the orderly placement of equipment and materials to prevent mix-ups and to provide adequate protection of the product. All right, so yet again, the facilities should be of suitable size as far as footprint goes, and it should also be adequate space inside of the rooms once we step forward in the building. Okay, so this idea is I am making maybe multiple products, and let's say I've got 3 or 4 things that the company is making. They cannot make 3 or 4 things in the same room. And the reason is because different personnel are going to be in there working on different tasks, and they're going to be working on top of each other. 3 or 4 products in the same room, well, you need ingredients in order to make those products. If you cram all of those ingredients into that room, there is a very high risk of getting those ingredients contaminated or switched, and that's not good either. As far as equipment goes, okay, think about your kitchen. Let's say there's 10 people in there and they all need a blender, and one person beats you to that blender, and maybe they didn't use it the proper way. Maybe they didn't clean it the proper way. Maybe they didn't rinse it the proper way. Whatever the case is, you have a chance of getting a dirty, filthy blender if that many people are fighting over that blender. The same thing happens in the biopharma industry. You cannot be working on top of each other, trying to do multiple tasks in one room, because this is a disaster. So again, it's very vague. CFR is going to tell these companies, listen, you need to be organized. You need to make sure you've got adequate space in order to do these jobs. We prefer that if you do a job, only one job gets done in the room that you have identified, and then it can move off to a different room or a different area where a different process will take place. Number 3, it says the flow of personnel, components, drug product containers, closures, labeling, in-process materials, and drug products. You know what I heard there? Blah, 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 blah. What I heard there was everything through the building shall prevent contamination. And the idea here is unidirectional. These companies very often are unidirectional in everything. That means it is a one-way street. I mean, come on now. You've all been in the cities and towns that have those aggravating one-way streets. And if you're down here in Wilmington and you're on Wooster and Dawson, I guarantee you at some point in time, you probably have seen somebody drive the wrong way on the one-way street. I have. I've seen it many times. Okay, well, what this means is that I'm going to arrive and I'm going to show up to work and I'm going to go through a door and I'm going to go in one way. And then after that, I'm going to leave and then I'm going to go out of the building in a different way. All of the materials that are incoming, well, those materials are going to be showing up in one direction, and I will receive those and they will come into the facility. They will travel through the rooms in a pathway that is a one-way street, and then out the other end they go. That is the way that this process works. So very, very important. Those are the things that we've got to talk about, and those are the facility designers. So they will let us know, this is your entry door, this is your exit door, this is how you get to this room, and this is how you leave that room. These are how materials come in. This is where materials leave. Unidirectional, if possible, is highly encouraged for the facilities. Next up, it says operations shall be performed within specifically defined areas of adequate size. There shall be separate or defined areas for the firm's operations to prevent the contamination and the mix-ups. So we kind of already talked about up above as far as adequate space goes. So operations are specific areas. So there is going to be a blending room, maybe. There's going to be a weighing room. There's going to be a chromatography room. There's going to be a lab room. There's going to be a bioreactor room. There's going to be a fermentation room. I'm going to see all of these breakout areas that begin to happen up underneath the roofs. And in each one of those localized areas, we're going to see a specific task take place. Again, that room needs to be designed so that way it makes sense for the task that is getting done in that area. So that's what this is all about. And this is what we're going to learn a little bit more about. And all of, again, the gears and the chains and the tubings and, you know, all of the pieces that turn and move up underneath the hood of a vehicle. Well, we're going to have to kind of break this down up underneath the roof of a facility that is Pharma or biopharma. So in the next video, we are going to be taking a look at the facility in more depth. And we're going to go through and talk about some job roles that you would see, not necessarily just manufacturing, but what are some of the other things that people are doing in this facility as we begin to kind of become more aware of how this thing is going to be organized. So in the next video, we'll pick up from there and we'll talk about rooms.